Hello everyone, welcome to North Carolina 4-H Daily Spark. My name is Paige Lilley and I'm the 4-H Extension Agent in Dare County. Today we're going to be doing an awesome chemical reaction called 4-H Fizzy Foam Fun, using some supplies that you might already have in your pantry. So we're going to be using I have a glass here that's in place of a bottle. We are going to use dish soap, just a squirt of dish soap. Food coloring, that's optional. You can have pink, blue, green, whatever you like. I have a fourth a cup of warm water in a small bowl here. A funnel is another optional supply that can be used in this chemical reaction. I have this rectangular baking dish here, which we'll need in case we make any type of mess. I have half a cup measuring here, which is for our hydrogen peroxide. This is a 3% solution. It recommends not using over 6% solutions for this chemical reaction. And then finally, I have 1 packet of active dry yeast, which definitely plays an important role in this chemical reaction. So let's jump right into it and see what we see. So I would start, if I were you guys, I would start with a notebook and jot down the supplies I have and any thoughts you might think about what is going to happen today. And keep that aside because you don't want to get it messy. So we're going to start with the warm water and we're going to add the yeast. Now, yeast is a really interesting ingredient because these are actually live microorganisms here, single-celled microorganisms that perform the function of a catalyst in this scientific experiment. So what is a catalyst exactly? It's something that speeds up a chemical reaction. So in this case, if something was going to occur already, this is going to make it occur much faster and then maybe amplify the effects that occur in the chemical reaction. So I have my yeast kind of mixing in. If I'm observing this for my notebook, I'm seeing kind of a creamy, almost foamy mixture that is forming on the sides. The yeast itself looks like small little pellets. I'm going to just mix mine up with my finger a little bit here, but if you have a spoon, you can do the same. Yep, I see that it is dissolving into the water nicely. So next we are going to get our bowl or our glass or our bottle here, and then we're going to add half a cup of hydrogen peroxide. I've already made a mess, so I'm glad I have the pan. There we go. If you do have food coloring, now is a great time to add it, any color that you'd like. Next, we are going to move on to the dish soap. We're just going to add a couple squirts. That should do it. Now, if I'm checking out what's happening in my hydrogen peroxide, I'm seeing some bubbles rising from the bottom of the glass slowly. I wouldn't say there's a large amount of bubbles, but there's definitely some movements going on here. And then the next part of the experiment is to take our yeast and water mixture, which I have. It's still slightly warm, but it's definitely not hot. And I'm going to add that to my hydrogen peroxide and dish soap. Okay. All right, so we are definitely having some fizzy foam fun, that is for sure. I have a tower of foam that is pouring out of my glass into my baking dish. Let me move it up here so that you all can see. It's coming out a little bit slower now, but it's definitely still pouring out as we speak. So let's kind of ask some questions. Is there something that you can jot down in your notebook, if you have it, to record your observations? So what did you observe before? I told you what I observed, but your experiment might be different. So it's important that you write down your observations. You might want to do this experiment again, and so you can look back and see how things changed throughout the experiment. So let's talk about what changed. I did see some bubbles in the hydrogen peroxide before, but I'm seeing tons of bubbles now. I mean, they're very, very small and they have formed a foam, but they have filled up my pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and touch my bubbles. Ooh, very warm, very, very warm. Let me feel the side of my glass here. Yes, so my glass, that hydrogen peroxide that we started with at the beginning was just room temperature, but I have a very warm glass here. So that is actually part of our chemical reaction. And let's talk about what is happening here. So this is an example of an exothermic chemical reaction. What that means is that during the process, heat is being let out. So I can feel heat on the edge of my glass here because heat is being expelled in this chemical reaction. Hydrogen peroxide has base components of water and oxygen. So in this instance, we're seeing the oxygen coming out in the form of all these little bubbles, all this fun foam. Usually this chemical reaction would take place slowly over time, but because we added that yeast that we talked about as the catalyst, which speeds up the reaction, we have a much greater effect here. Not only did it occur faster, but it has also created a large kind of a mess here, but a fun experiment for you to try at home. So I encourage you to check out more activities like this at the 4-H STEM Lab. There are fun programs that you can be doing at home right now with supplies that you probably already have on hand. This experiment I would like to do again myself. I would compare doing it. This is the 3% solution, but it also said you could use 6%, just not greater than 6%. So I would do it again, see if that had any changes. I started out with pretty warm water, but I want to know like how that would change if I had hot water versus lukewarm water. I would want to do it with colors if I could do it again. And these are all things that I would be recording in my journal and then comparing later. So this is a great way for you to do a science experiment at home. And we are so glad you joined us for our North Carolina 4-H Spark. And we hope we see you next time.